Welcome to the Peak of Possibility podcast, where we have sobering conversations. My name is Glynis Franz, and if you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, and comment. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please don't hesitate to reach out. Enjoy the show.
So welcome to this new podcast, Peak of Possibility. I'm Hunter Shepard, and I'm here with Glynis Franz. And I'm curious, I know this is supposed to be about your story, but what do you think is the most important lesson you've learned working in the addiction treatment industry?
I think the most important lesson I've learned is treatment is just really the beginning. It's an entry point to getting somebody separated from whatever it is they're using long enough so they can all actually start to live life, right? So I think that there's a lot of there's good treatment, there's bad treatment, but I think it's just a foundation point. It's like a jumping off point, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And where did you get sober at?
I got sober in federal prison. I got sober in federal prison in 2019, and I wasn't sober. The first year I was there, I was like, I think my last drink was made from ketchup packets and rotting fruit. And my last drug was in God knows where. Before I finally got sober, it was COVID hit, and the last 5 months I was there, I ended up drying out because we were on the quarantine of all quarantines. And then I got out, and I went to recovery meetings.
Wow. And was that the first time you had been introduced to meetings is when you got out?
No.
Or had you tried to get sober before?
Yeah. So the very first time I ever got sober, I was 16. So I had been in and out of treatment centers. My first detox was at age 14. Wow. And at 16, I was committed to the state of Massachusetts, to the Department of Youth Services, till I was 18. And I was put in juvie for a year and a half, almost 2 years. I went to a treatment center for girls afterwards. And that was when I first got some sobriety time under my belt. And I got sober for 2.5 years.
Wow. I was actually in the Department of Youth Services in Ohio.
Yeah.
When I was 16.
Really?
So, yeah.
For what?
Well, a lot of probation violations that led up to that. But I was also, I was an angry kid. And my dad saw that I was going down the wrong path. At 12 years old, I was prescribed Adderall. I started to smoke weed and drink. And my mom was super enabler, right? And my dad was hard ass, to the point where we're going to fight if you don't stop and listen to me. So that's what we did. And I would get arrested for that and go to jail. And then I got put on probation. And from the very beginning for me, smoking weed, I was so obsessed with smoking weed that I knew that I was going to go to jail and I would do it anyway. Mm-hmm. And that just happened so many times that it got to the point where my probation officer was like, well, there's nothing else I can do for you, and I'm going to send you to DYS. You know?
Yeah. Same deal. It was probation. I think I got a DUI when I was 14 years old. I didn't even have a permit. And I was on my way to the club in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I was with a bunch of people who had a license. I don't know why I was the designated driver, because I was not sober, but that started probation. And then I was failing drug tests, and I was failing drug tests for some pretty serious stuff. At the time, at 14, it wasn't so normal for a kid that age to be using the drugs I was using. And I failed a drug test, and I knew I had court coming up, and I knew I was going to get committed. And so I ended up running away, spending a few months on the run, and then eventually being arrested, running from the cops, picking up a new charge, and then committed to the state.
Was it uncommon for people in your family to use drugs? Were you the only one, or were there other people in your family that used with you?
Yeah, so I grew up in a pretty sober home. My mom got sober before I was born, so she's a self-diagnosed alcoholic, and so she never drank. And my dad is very much a normal drinker. He was old Massachusetts, mass hole, working class, was in the post office for 30 years, Vietnam veteran, and like he would have like a beer once every 6 months. So no, there wasn't really much drinking in my household, but the household was dysfunctional in general.
Right.
And my mom left for work when I was 11 and didn't come home. And I had been like having issues leading up to that point. So I was running away from home. I was getting arrested. I was getting in trouble. I wasn't going to school, and we were fighting a lot. And then she left, and it was like all bets were off. Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you got high?
Yeah. So on what?
on anything. On anything.
Yeah. So my very first drink, I think I was like 9 years old. We were at Camp Yellowstone, you know, the Yogi Bear. Yeah. Our family were at Jellystone Park, and my dad would drink when he ate steak. So he would have like a glass of red wine, and he had this box of wine. He was like grilling steaks, and he would let me have like a little sip. And I remember he let me have like a little bit, right? And he was grilling, and I kept going back to the box and drinking more. And I just remember like kind of running around and falling. And then the first time I smoked weed, I think, was in the 6th grade. We skipped school. Yeah.
Did you get high the first time you did it?
The first time I smoked weed, I think I did. I have like a recollection of being with a bunch of like girls that were older than me. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I got high the first time. I remember going to the football game and just like, I think I almost got into a fight with a bunch of girls, and I was so high I just sat there while they all yelled at me. I just stared in the distance. Yeah.
When was the first time you used hard drugs then?
Shortly thereafter that, I think the first time I used any kind of hard drugs, I took a pill. I didn't know what it was. I think it was Vicodin, and I really liked it. And that was also at like age 11. And then by the end of my 6th grade year, I was like dating some older boy. I was 12 years old. My mom had left, and he was doing, we were doing coke, but he would cook it up and he would freebase it. And I just remember we would all like do coke, and they would cook it. And I would just like have my little lines. And I remember I tried taking a hit, and it was no good. Like I wasn't doing it right. But what would happen is they would run out before I would, and they'd be looking at my little pile of coke where I would have my little bumps. They'd be like, give me some of that. And so I'm like, well, I better learn how to smoke it. And so I started smoking freebase, and then we would do Oxy 80s to come down. And so by the time I was in 7th grade, I was like in detox.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And what do you think the first like serious consequence of your addiction was?
First serious consequence, I would say, I think it started when I started, school was important to me, and I wanted to do well, and I couldn't show up. I couldn't show up for school. And I remember I would stay up all night. We would like smoke freebase and come down on these 80s, and it would be Tuesday at 7 a.m. And I would have this like feeling in my chest that I was fucking everything up, and that I didn't want to do it the next day. And then I would wake up the next day and I would do it over again. And then I started getting in trouble with the courts like around that same time. I went to a doctor's appointment, and I had dropped so much weight so quickly that they thought I either had a drug problem or an eating disorder. And my primary care wanted to drug test me, and I refused. And so they called child services, and then that kind of started the cycle of me going in and out of facilities.
Did your parents know at that point?
My mom wasn't there. She left. So she went from being like a stay-at-home mom to not being present in my life at all.
Wow.
Because when she left for work, she sent a letter in the mail a week later, and she never like came back. My dad, he was older, and he had retired. And in order to provide for me and my sister, he had to go back to work. So he was like 60-something years old, working overnight shifts at the hospital. So he was older and a little bit of an enabler, and he felt a lot of guilt around my mom leaving. And I think he just didn't want to believe what was going on with me. He wanted to believe what I said. Like he couldn't take a look at like what was happening.
Right. Yeah, he was. There was probably a little fear associated with that, you know.
Yeah.
You aren't a parent, are you?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine how I would. I mean, I guess being educated in this, but like as a parent, like with my parents, they never really. My mom never. She's drank like maybe 15 times and has never smoked weed. Like, I couldn't imagine the fear that he probably felt and didn't want to, accept it. I'm curious, how did you get into like the treatment industry?
Yeah, I got out of prison and I was in a like sober living house. And now if it was me, I don't think that this would be good. Like it worked out for me, but typically this doesn't work out. I was fresh out of prison, so I had 5 months sober technically because I had been incarcerated and was sober at the end. But I moved into this sober living. The house manager relapsed within the first week I was there and became a client. And there was like 6 other people there because it was the middle of COVID. And I became the best option for a house manager. And I started working as a tech, and I just remember going to that first interview to be like a behavioral health technician, right? Which is like, like the entry level position of like, working in treatment. And I was sure that they had done some comprehensive background check and that they knew everything. So I remember going to the interview and just like word vomiting everything, like, I'm a federal felon. I was smuggling immigrants, but you probably already know that. And I remember them looking at me and they're like, you're hired. And I was like, shocked. I thought you had
perfect candidate.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how it all started. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so tell us that story. How did you get to the place where you were human trafficking or smuggling people? I guess that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
There is.
The people that I was smuggling, they jumped in the trunk. I didn't force them in there. Yeah. So kind of crazy. It's so funny. It feels like a dream when I like think about it, like another life, Yeah. So I was buying a lot of drugs, large quantity of drugs from some, pretty wild people, and I was consistent. I was like buying large quantities.
That was here in California?
Yeah, here in LA. And at a certain point, we had gotten to know each other, and I remember they wanted me to smuggle drugs for them. And at the time, even though I was in the throes of my addiction, I was making pretty good money with all the crazy shit I had going on. And they were like, smuggle drugs. And I looked at kind of the risk versus reward. The very minimum I would do was like 10 years in federal prison, which is a lot of time. Yeah. And also the money was not that great. Like in order to make decent money smuggling drugs from Mexico, they pay you like $500 a kilo. Oh. So you have to bring like 50 kilos in order for it to be worthwhile. And that I'm looking at a lot more jail time.
Yeah.
The risk versus reward wasn't there. And so eventually they're like, people? And I was like, all right.
And those people would actually pay for that then. So it was the people paying for it.
For the smuggling. Yeah. So it was usually their family members or something like that. I mean, there was a whole network of people. I was just the person who would pick them up at the border, and like it was kind of a whole operation. So I would go down to San Diego. I would be at like a hotel or something like that. I would meet the people who were organizing it all, and they would like show me on a map where I needed to go, and it was different every time. And I would have them like in my Bluetooth because you don't want to be on your phone when you're like driving to the border. It's suspicious. And I would get to like a dirt road right at the border, and they'd be like, okay, you're going to lose service in about 1 minute. And when you lose service, take a right and then slow down. And they would have people somewhere, like it would be complete emptiness, but there would be people somewhere that would see me and know where I was, like rancheros or something like that. And so I would lose service so they'd know exactly where I was at. I would slow down, and then like 3 or 4 Mexican immigrants would hop out of the bushes with blankets on their feet and they would hop in the trunk, and then I would just drive them through the checkpoints. And sometimes I would bring them to like a stash house that I would find out like that morning. It was usually a different place every time. Or sometimes I would bring them all the way to LA and do the handoff, which was more money.
Wow. So, and you don't think that like any of those times, like people were carrying drugs while doing that?
They could have been.
They could have been.
100% they could have been. Yeah. There was one time where they wanted me to use one of their cars instead of my own. And like, I didn't get caught that time, but I can't count how many girls I was in prison with who were like, I had no idea. And of course, none of them have any idea, but I think some of them definitely had an idea.
Wow. So what's the charge whenever you get arrested for that?
So I was first charged with smuggling illegal aliens. And they couldn't prove that I was bringing them from Mexico. They could only prove that I was transporting them stateside, which that's what I was doing. I wasn't crossing into Mexico. I was right at the border.
You got caught on the other side.
I got caught in the U.S.
Yeah.
And at the checkpoint. So it was changed to transporting illegal aliens.
What so I'm thinking of like the checkpoint, like in like out by like Palm Springs or something like that.
No, this was in San Diego, so it was the Pine Valley checkpoint. Okay. So it was like right on the like Tijuana border, U.S. border.
So, like, how did that go down? Like, what exactly happened?
Well, so, I mean, I was out of my mind. I just want to preface this, like, because there's always someone who's like, oh, you were really helping them. And I'm like, it wasn't altruistic. You know what I mean? I was just like trying to get more money. And I also kind of, the last few years, after years of going in and out of treatment centers, I stopped trying to get sober, like entirely. And I wasn't suicidal in the sense where I was attempting to kill myself, but I was doing things that were so impulsive and so chaotic to like kind of just feel something. And I kind of lost the will to like live. So what ended up happening is I had done a bunch of trips that particular time. And I picked up 4 people, and I shouldn't have. One, I had a Mercedes. It was not a big Mercedes. It was like a small, older Mercedes, and I barely could fit 3 people in my trunk. Like, it was better for probably 2, which is typically what I would do. But I had gotten greedy. So I squeezed 3 in the front, and I looked at all of the illegal immigrants that I was picking up, and I was like, okay, he looks the least Mexican. And so I put this like young Hispanic guy in my passenger seat. And that was definitely probably not my first mistake, but at least the second mistake. And I had the people in my ear, I remember. And so they know where I'm at as soon as the service reconnects. And they're like, okay, do you see any cars? Are there any people? And I'm like, no, we're good. And I tell them that I have one in the passenger seat. And I had been flying through the checkpoints. Like, they weren't even stopping me. They weren't checking my ID. They were just waving me through. And so I had gotten cocky about it. It was like 6 a.m. on a Friday morning. It was Friday the 13th, I remember. And he was like, just drop him off. We'll pick him up at the next one. And I was like, no, we're good. And he's like, all right, it's on you. And so I drove through the checkpoint, and I still had, the people in my ear who were in Mexico. And the Border Patrol's like, they waved me to secondary. And I remember I had given the guy in my passenger seat, I gave him my iced coffee, a Newport 100 cigarette, because that's what I smoked at the time, and a pair of my sunglasses. And I'm like, oh, he'll look a lot less Mexican, if I dress him up like this. And he didn't look less Mexican. In fact, he probably looked suspicious. And they asked me, oh, where are you guys coming from? And I gave them some story that was not true. And then they asked him where he was coming from, and he just blinked at them because he had he didn't speak a single word of English. Like, I don't even know if he knew how to say hello in English.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, oh, can we search the car? I said no. They had the dogs do a walk around, and then they found the rest in the trunk.
Oh, no.
And for years, if you talk to like OG people who had done this back in the day, they used to just let you go. Like, if it was your first offense and you didn't have any known gang affiliations, they would just like let you go, and you would be flagged the next time you came through. So I was really thoroughly convinced that they were just going to let me go. Well, I didn't consider the political climate and who was the president of the United States, and they didn't let me go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You said that you had been in and out of treatment programs, and you had all these like consequences before that happened, and you didn't want to get sober. What would you say to the person that's currently in that, like, where they're just suffering all these consequences? They've tried to get sober. Maybe it feels like impossible. Like, what words of like wisdom would you give that person?
Yeah, in my experience, I mean, I got sober this last time because I was in federal prison, but I had been in prison and county jail and treatment centers like over 50 times at that point. So I don't think the conduit of me getting sober was just being in prison. I think we talk about like hitting a bottom, right? And there was a lot of bottoms for me, but I also kind of believe it's bottomless. I really do. I think if you think it can't get worse, it can. Like it 100% can, and it will. And I think the bottom is really not like an external circumstance. I don't think it's I've lost everything, or I've sold my body, or I've been to prison, or I've, whatever it might be. I've overdosed 4 times. I've lost people I love. I think for some people it can be, right? But I think it's really like an internal experience where something inside me shifted and I had surrendered. Like I had given up, not because of all the things outside of me, but because like I got to a place where I really recognized that like I was never going to be able to figure this out, that this is going to continue, and the only outcome was going to be like me dying, and I didn't really actually want to die. And so when I had that moment of complete and utter hopelessness and like a true surrender, it looked like me opening up to maybe doing something different. And when I say something, really it was like everything. Like I had to change everything.
Wow. What do you think has been your most like beautiful experience with recovery?
That's a hard question to answer. I mean, well, if you look at me now, I look like, somebody who maybe had an extra mimosa on Laguna Beach or something. So my life is like really different. When I first got out of prison, I only went by my street name, Boston, which is really funny because I'm not even from Boston. I'm from Worcester. Like I was so delusional. Like I was a sex worker. I mean, my life was like I had a pimp. My life was crazy before. So like all the external things present day have shifted, like how I look, how I show up, how I interact with people in the world. I have meaningful relationships. I've gotten married. I have a career. I'm starting a business. I have a podcast. I mean, life is really insane. My credit score is good. I have a relationship with my family. My mom, I didn't speak to her for 13 years, and her and I have a relationship today. And she, after 25 years, started drinking again. After 25 years of sobriety. So I think one of the most beautiful things that I've found is regardless of the circumstances, good, bad, or ugly, the promise of getting sober and having like a recovery is that like my outside circumstances actually don't need to change in order for me to find like peace and fulfillment. It's really like it's an inside job,
For sure. For sure. How important do you think treatment is?
I mean, in hindsight, I would have died to go to a quality treatment center. The treatment centers I went to were like hospitals. You know what I mean? They were not comfortable places. There was like 60 people on the unit, and we were in literal hospital beds, Getting the opportunity to work in the treatment space and seeing kind of what's available, comfortable accommodations, strong clinical work, like it really kind of helped. It makes me regret, I guess, not taking that opportunity because I didn't know it was available to me. I think treatment is so valuable because if you're the type of addict or alcoholic that I am, you can't stop on your own. And that's just the reality. Like, I couldn't even stop while I was incarcerated. Do you know what I mean? So, like, if I get the opportunity to go to a place where I can get separated long enough to actually find some purpose, right? Some connection, find some relationships with people who are going through the same thing, it can be monumental. It could be the thing that shifts your entire life, right? For me, that's definitely been the case. And, stopping on your own is also dangerous depending on what you're using. Like it could cost you your life.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. What kind of things do you think should be different about the treatment industry?
Oh my gosh, so much. Where do I start? Well, I mean, we're here in Los Angeles in California, and there's like over 3,000 treatment centers here. I would say 85% of them are not so good. When I say not so good, there's levels to that. Some are just doing what they need to do, meeting the bare minimum requirement of like, getting somebody sober, but they're not setting them up for success afterwards. And then some are dark. I mean, body brokering, insurance fraud, victimizing people who are already at their lowest points, taking advantage of families who are desperate to get their loved one help. So I think that there probably should be a little bit maybe stricter requirements on what people need to do in order to just open up a treatment center.
Yeah.
And also I think a lot of organizations fall short of like, what's the plan after treatment? Like, how do you set somebody up for success? They've been in treatment 90 days, 30 days, 6 months even, and they get out and they have no job, no money, no bank account, no skills, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. They definitely need more like life skills programs, not just like 30 to 90 day treatment and then it's like good luck,
Right.
Do you think that the 12 steps should be like a requirement of treatment?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. So for me, 12-step programs are what saved my life.
Yep. And
I think treatment is the thing that allows us the space to start that journey. It's changed my life, but I also know that it's not like a one-size-fits-all situation. And if a person is resistant to that model and the 12-step model, does that mean that they shouldn't get help or that there's not any alternative solutions? I don't think so. I've like opened up my thinking to like broader spectrums, but I think it's been effective for millions of people, and I see it change people's lives. And it's also a solution that doesn't cost anything, that's long term, that you have forever. Yeah. You don't have to pay a deductible to go to a recovery meeting or a 12-step meeting. You know what I mean? Right. You don't have to like pay a person in the recovery community to like help and guide you. It's just something that's done altruistically. So,
yeah. Just for the sake of like informing people that might be watching this that don't really understand, what's the difference between in-network facilities and out-of-network facilities? Yeah. Not just in the type of coverage, but maybe like the type of services that are provided.
Yeah. So, I mean, an out-of-network facility is oftentimes a little bit less restricted financially in what kind of services they can offer. Kind of what comes with being in network with an insurance carrier is you're contracted at a certain rate, and oftentimes that rate is really, really low. Therefore, the services that are available are more accessible, but also not necessarily quite as good because it costs a lot of money to pay a really strong licensed therapist. It costs a lot of money to have a psychiatrist see you in person, on a regular basis. So out-of-network offers not only stronger clinical and medical service options, but also amenities, right? So it can afford to allow you to be in a luxury setting. It can afford you to maybe have a masseuse or a private chef or, all the fancy things that make your stay a little bit more comfortable, but also maybe the outcome from your clinical and therapeutic experience stronger.
Right. What would you say to the people that like, so a lot of people have this like opinion that private treatment is like wrong and that, it should be accessible to everybody, which I do agree in some ways treatment should be accessible to everybody. But what would you say to the people that say it's wrong to like run this as a business? Because you're right, like because of insurances, we're able to provide those types of services.
Right. No, I don't think it's right or wrong. I think everybody should have access to care. And I think it's really valuable and important to create just one less hurdle to somebody making the decision to accept help, right? Yeah. And at least here in California, also in Massachusetts, where I'm from, there are quite a few resources if you don't have private insurance or financial resources.
All the programs that you went to were state-funded programs. Do you think that if you were at like that part of your life, like you were in the right moment where you wanted help, could you have got sober in a state-funded facility?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think I could have. I mean, I did that first time, right? And I'm very involved in a lot of nonprofits that offer, state funded resources here in California. And I see people getting sober there. One thing I will say, some of those resources actually offer longer lengths of stay, which I think is really positive.
Yeah.
But I also think that there are people who, and people who I've seen, but people who would not do well in that setting, who wouldn't even go if that was the only option available. Yeah. And so I don't think it's a one size fits all. And I think it's important to be like loose and flexible and open to meet people where they're at in order to get them the help they need. And if they can have a better experience in a more comfortable setting where you're not with 80 other people and maybe you just have, 5 or 6 people in a house and you have your own private space, I think you can maybe let your hair down and it seems a little bit less invasive. And there is also something, valuable in going to a home, right? A house that's not a hospital setting that feels like you can actually open up and get vulnerable.
Right.
So, how long have you been sober?
I have been sober since February 21st, 2018.
What happened that led you to getting sober?
Well, it's kind of a long answer, but I went to treatment 5 different times. And, look, I don't come from like a wealthy family. I come from a working class family, and my mom, worked in a hospital the same hospital for like 35 years. So, I got blessed to have a mom that had a stable job and health insurance. And, every time that I tried to get sober, like every time I went to treatment, I actually wanted to go. Like it was never forced. Like I always got to a place where I was like, okay, I want help. But I kept going to the wrong treatment centers. When I first went, I got sober in Florida. The place that I went to was a massive hustle. It looked
nice. The old Florida shuffle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But thank God I didn't know that people were getting paid to go to those places back then, or I probably would have fell into that, But the place that I went to, it looked nice. It sounded nice. Like everything was good, but they really did not give a shit. And, they didn't prepare me to go home back to West Virginia, so I went home and I relapsed, and which, is partially my fault, given like it was nobody else's fault. I chose to use, and I got stuck in this cycle of going to like 30-day treatment programs, whether they were in California or Florida, and then I would come home and I would relapse. So I did this over a 2-year period where I would leave and come back, and the last time that I relapsed, my girlfriend broke up with me. I lost my job. I'm living at home with my parents who have been raising my daughter. And it was just chaos, and I didn't have a fellowship. I didn't have a sponsor. I just had 5 months of sobriety, and, everything just kind of fell to the side. Somebody showed up in the perfect moment and said, I've got drugs on me. Do you want to get high? So I did. 3 weeks later, I lost 45 pounds. I had picked my whole entire body. I was covered in scabs, like from meth, like compulsive picking. And I was delusional. I'd slept maybe 3 days in 3 weeks. And I was hanging out with this girl that I had robbed for $300 worth of Suboxone a few years before. And she had a resentment against me. And she poisoned the meth that I was using with a drug called Flocka. And I remember, like, I had been nodded out on fentanyl, and I woke up, and I sucked up a shot of meth, what I thought was meth, but it was actually Flocka, and I injected it. And I remember I put the needle in my arm, and as I was pushing down the plunger, I looked up, and she was like, I fucking hate you, and I blacked out. And I didn't know who I was, where I was, like absolutely out of my mind for 3 days. My parents had been through this so many times to know that I obviously needed to get back into treatment. But the one thing that they did differently is that they really researched the program that I was going into. They made sure it was somewhere I could stay for at least 3 to 4 months, somewhere that was going to hold me accountable, give me life skills, make me work the 12 steps. When I came out of it, they put me on the phone to do the assessment, and they literally drove me straight to the airport. And I remember, and I was withdrawing really bad because I hadn't used for 3 days. I was just
Shitting yourself.
Literally, I came out of my delusion dope sick, and it was brutal. And my body was destroyed anyway from what that girl had poisoned me with. And so they took me to the hood on the way to the airport, and I'm literally getting high in my parents' back seat on the 2-hour drive to the airport. My mom's like clutching Narcan in case something, happens to me. And I remember right before my parents dropped me off at the airport, my dad said, "Do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated? Because if you don't stop, that's literally the only choices you have left." And I realized, like, in that moment that I didn't want to die, and that I was, and that if I didn't stop, I was going to suffer until I did die. And I made the choice to take it serious. And here I am.
So you said that you had been 5 times, and every time you went to treatment, you really intended on staying sober. Aside from maybe some of the facilities not being so good, what do you think was the shift that would change and lead you to going back out?
I think what it was is when I was at rock bottom, every time right before I would go, I would be dope sick, or I would just, something really bad would have happened. Like there was some kind of motivating factor to get me sober, right? And in that moment, I wanted it. But then I would be 30 days in, and I'd feel better physically and mentally and all these things. But I never really found a spiritual solution. I never had that. So I would get confident, and I would be like, oh, I could smoke weed.
Right.
And I've literally drank 15 times in my life, been drunk 15 times. I was never into alcohol, but I would be like, oh, I could drink, or, I could do LSD or ecstasy or whatever, because it wasn't meth or heroin or fentanyl. And I would justify that.
What do you think about abstinence-based sobriety? Like you mentioned, some people do the California sober thing, or maybe they're using Suboxone or methadone or anti-abuse or medications to keep them sober. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that there's different levels to it. I never think methadone is okay. I think methadone is fucking archaic, Yeah. It is literally... Yeah, that drug should just be discontinued, and nobody should ever use methadone, in my opinion.
I've been on the methadone clinic a couple times. It's not fun.
No, it makes literally no sense, because you can turn around and shoot dope while you're taking methadone. What is the actual point of methadone? Other than, I get it, at one point they used it because of the pain of withdrawals and all of that, but then you become even more dependent on that than heroin, or fentanyl or whatever. It's a really bad drug, but which I know people will be pissed off by me saying that. But Suboxone, I think Suboxone and Subutex are incredible drugs when they're used in a detox setting. But or for the people that have literally relapsed 50 times, and they have almost died 50 times, and they literally will not stop using, Suboxone is great to block them from dying, right? But for the average everyday drug user, I don't think that you should be put on Suboxone for years. I just think that it does more damage than it does good in that situation. Look, for people that can shoot dope one day and then smoke weed and live a somewhat normal life, whatever, I just... I'm not one of those people. I can't just go smoke weed and live a normal life. I will literally obsess over it. If I smoked weed right now, I will literally obsess over it to the point where it takes over my life.
Same.
you know? So like, you know, good for you if you're the type of person where you can be a junkie one day and then smoke weed and never touch it again, but that's just not the type of person that I am. And I've done enough experimenting to know, you know?
So how do you think all of these experiences of going in and out of treatment, almost dying, how do you think that affected your parents? And what would you tell a parent who has a kid that's currently struggling and going through that same cycle?
Yeah, I mean, my parents were terrified. And at the time, like when I was like the worst, my mom was an on-call MRI tech. So she would get called at like 3 in the morning because of like a car crash or somebody was really sick or whatever. And every time they would get that call in the middle of the night, they would think there was something wrong with me. And, you know, they lived in absolute fear. And, you know, I definitely would never wish that upon any parent or anybody. And the one thing that I could tell a parent that has a kid that's suffering is get educated on how to set boundaries. You know, you giving them money, you giving them somewhere to live, you giving them a car, like none of that stuff is helping them. And the one thing that my parents did that like really changed my life was they set a firm boundary, and they literally drew a line, and they said, on this side of it, we will never give you money. We'll never give you a ride to your drug dealer's house. We'll never do anything that supports your addiction. We'll literally make you food ourselves and bring it to you and tell you that we love you. And if you decide that it's time for you to get help, like we will do whatever we can to help you. But we will not support you getting high in any way. So, you know, my life became hard very quickly. You know, I slept in cars, I walked the streets, I slept on people's couches. And very quickly I realized that I didn't want to live like that. You know?
What is the, and I know this is maybe a hard question, what is the absolute worst thing that you ever did in order to continue your using and your addiction? Like, number one.
Yeah, I mean, I stole my grandma's 50th anniversary ring. Thankfully, she was able to get it back. But, you know, that was something that thankfully through recovery, I was able to make amends with her, you know. But, yeah, I mean, tons of stuff like that. Stole from my family, stole from friends. Yeah, just manipulated and stole from everybody I possibly could, you know.
What was it like trying to, after you got sober, like what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced as you kind of really began this journey of like staying sober?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the hardest things, especially like at the beginning of recovery, is like living life like with emotions, you know? Because as addicts, especially if you're addicted to like a drug like an opiate or, you know, opioids, you suppress all of your feelings for so long. And then, you know, you're sober, and then you're having to like learn life and, you know, like, I don't know, maybe feel like rejection or go through like a breakup or, you know, you get fired from a job or, you know, all of the uncomfortable things that we would escape from or use like as an excuse to get high. Like you have to live life and go through that. And I think especially at the beginning, that's really hard.
Yeah. Were there ever any times early on in your sobriety where you almost relapsed?
No, I think I was really scared, you know, I was really scared to do that. Yeah. And I mean, for the first like year, I was really unwell mentally. Like I really like felt those emotions. But no, I just kept going, you know?
Pushing.
Yeah.
You mentioned you have a son?
Well, I have a daughter, that unfortunately experienced, you know, my addiction. And then I have, a son that was born, since I've been sober. And then, I have 2 stepsons, which they're my sons, you know, I'm with them every day.
So do your kids, how old are they?
So we have 2 11-year-olds, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Okay. And so do your kids know about your
Oh yeah.
history?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're very open with them. And I also want I think it's important for them to know, like, what happens if you use drugs. Like, what happens if you suffer from addiction and make those choices. Like, I want them to know I want them to be scared of it, you know?
Do you said one of your kids really experienced your addiction. What do you see some of the fallout being as a result of that, of how that's affecting your daughter now?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that still affects her is that her mom is still using, and I do think that she struggles with that, but I really hope that like motivates her to like not go down that path. I want her to like know the reality of it and avoid that, you know?
That makes sense. So what is the thing that keeps you going today? Like, what is your why? What is your purpose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say my family for sure. I mean, I know that especially early on, like in recovery, we say like you have to do it for yourself, which I totally agree. You do need to do it for yourself, and you need to put your recovery first. But then you get to a point where it's all about being of service, not just to like other addicts, but also to your loved ones. And that's not just my like biggest motivator in recovery, but just in life as a whole.
So what do you think? I know you said your family is your your biggest purpose currently. Why do you think that in the beginning or all those other times that it wasn't enough? And I'm only asking because I know for me, there were times where I wanted in the depths of my soul, like put my hand on a lie detector test to stop. And when I said, I'm going to stop because I love you, Mom, I love you, Dad, I love my partner, I meant it. And then something would happen. And then I would find myself back in the cycle.
I mean, addiction is just such a selfish thing, and when we're in the depths of it, that's all we can think about. That's all that matters. And not just like when we're actively using, but like 30 days in, even though I was sober, I still was not like spiritually well. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Like, yeah, it's just such a selfish, it's a selfish thing for sure.
Do you think like willpower is actually part of the solution of being able to figure it out?
No, I don't think, no, you have to surrender.
It's the opposite, right?
Yeah, it's the opposite. Yeah, I mean, yes, people are so ridiculous saying that, like, just have some willpower, and it's like, oh, okay, bud, like, if that's what it came down to, nobody would be an addict, you know? No, you have to surrender, and, yeah, no.
What did that feel like when you did surrender? Like, what were the feelings associated with that, like, when you had that moment of complete and utter, like, surrender?
I don't actually think that I like fully remember because for the first because I'd been poisoned, so I was like out of my mind, and then I got to treatment, and for the first 10 days it was just like I slept for 10 days straight, it felt like. But when I came out of it and I realized I don't know, it was a relief. Like I was at a place where I was like, I realized that I never had to do that again, you know? So that was a relief. But the first couple weeks were just a blur for me, you know?
So what's life look like today?
It's beautiful. I have a beautiful home and a beautiful family. I get to create content and raise awareness about addiction and recovery and treatment. And I do interventions literally all over the world. Families hire me all over the world to do interventions and transports. I get to work with treatment programs all over the world and, work with some of the best people in our industry. And, I couldn't have imagined my life like this.
Full circle, right?
Yeah.
What a miracle. It's kind of it's really hard to wrap our brain around, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, what prompted you to start being more public and like talking publicly about some of your experiences and getting more active on social medias and the podcast that you do, like, was that just something you decided to do one day, or?
Yeah, I was in sober living.
Classic.
I mean, I was like literally 2 weeks in or something. I had literally just like regained consciousness pretty much, right?
Yeah, because you slept for the first 10, so
Literally.
essentially you'd be awake for 4 days, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I was like fresh into sober living, and I had no like intentions of it like growing to anything. I just started to like write about my story and be honest about like where I was in life and how I had failed to get sober so many times and how I was like taking it serious. At the very beginning, also, I started to like make a lot of like memes out of like, I don't know if you've seen my like before picture of me when I was like,
Tore the fuck up.
yeah. So I used to like make these like really sick like drug addict memes, which I regret it now because they go viral every once in a while and people will like tag me in it and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe these people made this of you. And it's like, no, actually, like I was
You made it of you.
yeah, I was the sick fuck that made this, back in the day. But those like started going viral and I was like, oh, well, like maybe I can like reach people. So I just, kept going and it just grew into what it is. Like it was never like planned like that.
Do you think that there's something to that? Like, I know also being a sober person, sometimes like people in recovery, we have like a little bit of a sadistic, like sick sense of humor. Like it can be very dark and like shocking to people who
to normal people.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Trauma.
Yeah.
It's
how we process it, right?
Yeah. It's just, I think we become like desensitized to stuff like that,
And it gets to a point, right? Like if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah.
And like you have to laugh about like it's some of the things that we've done, right? Like you shot Flocka, you were out for 4 days, almost died. Like at a certain point, like you almost have to laugh, right? But it's not so funny when you're in it.
Because it's just it's literally insane that we can even relate to stuff like that.
Yeah, it totally is.
Yeah, no, it's you definitely got to find humor in it for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of healing in that, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you feel would be important for anybody watching to know?
Yeah, I just, and I say this a lot. I would say that if you're at rock bottom right now and, you're feeling hopeless and lost, like the best thing that you can do is reach out, It doesn't matter who you reach out to. I don't care if you reach out to your church, you go to a meeting, you find a treatment center, you tell your parents, like, the only way that people can help you is if you reach out and, there's hope. Like if people like you and I can overcome addiction and build the lives that we have, like, it's possible for anybody. And you should just reach out.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on the Peak of Possibility podcast, Hunter. So good to see you. And I think that's it.